here to give us some insight into really the problems of having a black mass in Oklahoma City and whether or not the residual effects of it may be long term, as well as what takes place behind those secret meetings, those covens, is Zachery King. And Zachary's been a guest on the show in the past. He is a former high priest of a satanic coven. He's now a Catholic convert, and he runs a ministry called All Saints Ministry. He's down in Florida. If you want to learn a little bit more about him or his ministry, you can check out allsaintsministry.org. And Zachary, thank you for your time, and welcome back. It's good to talk with you.
Oh, thanks for having me, Drew. Great
to have you here. So I don't even know where to start. I mean, we can talk about the black mass in Oklahoma, but maybe let's first talk about what you have seen and where this leads in your own life, and maybe just to give perspective for those who don't think this is a big deal. Can a black mass in a public place have spiritual consequences for the city? I saw that weird parallel to the beheadings that took place right after this took place, but give me your perspective and your take.
Well, I mean, when you're inviting the devil anywhere, there's spiritual ramifications for that. You know, even this group that says, oh, we're just doing it for educational purposes. Well, you did it for educational purposes 2 years ago. Didn't you learn anything? You know, right. There's evil stuff that happens. You know, they invited the manager of the Civic Center, kept having demonic things happen in the Civic Center. You know, like the lights are going out. Chairs are moving on their own. I heard chairs were flying through the Civic Center.
Wow.
And it scared a lot of workers. A lot of workers were quitting. They were like, I don't want to work there if this stuff is happening. It feels like somebody's walking right behind them. They turn around, there's nobody there. Somebody taps on their shoulder, they turn around, there's nobody there. You know, lights turn on and off. You put your coffee cup down, your water mug down, or whatever. You turn around, it's gone. You know, so they called an exorcist, and they asked him, "Would you come over and exorcise our building? We're having a problem." And he said, "Do you promise to never do another one? If you promise to not do another one, I'll show up. I'll do your exorcism." And they said no. And we can't promise because it's a public place. Everybody has access to it. And, you know, we also need the revenue. You know, he says, well, if money is more important, then I'm not coming. So, you know, that's going to be an ongoing problem there, but they've given demons permission to be there.
Right, exactly.
Since the Civic Center is a public place, you know, and you've given permission of the devil to be there, then the devil can pretty much show up anywhere, because as a civic center, as a public institution, you have given him permission to come.
Well, of course, we know the bishop later came in and said those prayers of exorcism, and here we have the situation once again. One of the things they're supposed to do at this particular event is something called the consumption of Mary. I'm not even sure what that even means, but can you explain maybe some of what transpires?
Sure. They have there's two separate events going to happen there. There's the Black Mass, and then separate from that, but a part of the same ceremony. When the ceremony ends, they're going to have a Hindu ceremony. And in the Hindu ceremony, they have a female goddess. Obviously, you know, a female goddess is a demon to anybody that doesn't know. And their female goddess is in charge of all the female goddesses of the world. So if she sees one that she doesn't like or doesn't agree with, it's up to her to decide what happens to that goddess. So she has seen Mary as a goddess and has decided that she must die and to be sent to hell. So in their mind, they are, in this ceremony, they're going to kill Mary and send her to hell. Now, they also, and this is a reason to me for Christians to be a little wary of the event, they're planning on taking a Blessed Mother statue, and then they're going to take a Quran, which is, you know, the Muslim Bible, and they plan on ripping the pages out of it, so desecrating a Quran in that way, and then dipping the pages in menstrual blood and rubbing that on the Mary statue.
Wow.
And that's in, some major Catholic news sites have reported on that.
Mm-hmm.
And that becomes a very scary thing because the Muslims are not very friendly, people when it comes to desecrating their Quran.
Well, we'll see what happens. If there's going to be a response from them as well. Of course, the Catholic Church there's been a big call right now to pray that this does not happen. I remember there was a proposed black mass at Harvard University, and a lot of people did adoration all night, a lot of prayer and sacrifice, and that never took place. But these guys have been here before, and I think they'll come back. Let's explain to people what happens also at a black mass outside of this Consumption of Mary story. So at a black mass, I mean, ultimately, it's pretty easy, I think, to steal a Eucharist. If you wanted to steal one, you probably could get a consecrated host. And I know that's kind of the central aspect of the Black Mass. What happens during these masses?
During the Black Mass, a typical or basic Black Mass is done sort of like they will have a group of Satanists that are chanting the prayers of a Catholic Mass backwards. You'll have people praying a rosary, but praying it backwards. They have a satanic Bible as well as a Bible called the Black Bible.
Right.
The Black Bible is a regular King James Version Bible, but printed backwards, so they can read it backwards. You have the altar is generally a prostitute, a nude prostitute, and because that's the most vile, to them, that's a great mockery. Instead of having an altar with Jesus on the altar or with a first-class relic, instead you have a prostitute that's nude. Many times the participants of the Black Mass are nude as well, or in different stages of undress. They also will perform quite possibly some sexual activity, but generally not something that God has meant. It'll never be two married people
right.
copulating. It will be doing things that are abhorrent, and no one should see. There'll be homosexuality, like there was at the revealing of Baphomet in Detroit.
Right.
And then there'll be, every time that the name of God should be there, they'll say the name of the devil instead.
Right.
There's usually a gong, and they hit the gong every time the name of the devil is used. And they do replace things like, if you are supposed to say good or something godly, they'll replace it with something demonic instead.
Right.
As you go through the entire thing, towards the end, if there's a consecrated host used, and usually the event is quite the buzz if you have one of those. Mm. But by the time the end of the Mass happens, everybody knows that consecrated host is there. One of the Black Masses I went to, they punched it, kicked it, threw it across the room, flipped a bird at it, sexually assaulted it, and threw it in a fire.
Wow.
So ultimately, the goal is to destroy the consecrated host.
Wow. So in satanic masses, I know they have holy objects, including like statues and crucifixes over the altar that are inverted. They're turned upside down. It's done to desecrate all holiness. And then, as you point out, during the Mass, the highlight of that is to really desecrate in the most vile way the Eucharist. And, the problem with this is that people who engage in this practice are carrying out, whether they're conscious of it or not, a satanic ritual, and it really allows them, it opens up their homes to demonic influence, because I think there are demons that are attracted by familial rituals. And, I think it's a serious problem for the local community as well. I mean, even those who are not in there. So, and I hope people will pray. I mean, this is in our country too, folks. This is horrific. You were present for several of these. I mean, you actually were if I remember correctly, in a satanic coven. You were a high priest, a warlock of some sort. What's your story? How did you get sucked into this, and ultimately, how did you find your way out? And I'm going to also give out the phones, too, for anyone who wants to join us. If you've got a question or so, my guest today is Zach King. I have him on for about 10 minutes. We're going to continue our conversation, but if you want to join it, our toll-free number here is 877-766-3777. So what led you into Satanism, and then ultimately what freed you?
Well, my foray into the first satanic coven I was in, because I joined a coven unofficially when I was 12, and what got me in there was another kid that was 12 years old recruited me. I was playing D&D every weekend, Dungeons and Dragons.
Right.
I was playing a game at school called Bloody Mary, or I Hate You Bloody Mary, and realizing that, doing some stuff, finding out magic was real, got started in this other coven that also played D&D and thought magic was real. And the things that they let me do, I mean, like my parents were like, you're not allowed to do this and allowed to do this and allowed to do this. I mean, they pretty much forbade me to do everything. And my coven let me do anything I wanted, and being allowed to do anything I wanted. And these guys were like one of the local youth centers, so to speak, of the entire town. So everybody went there. It's not like, I was a secret meeting or something. It was everybody went to this place. Everybody liked to go. Parents would drop off their kids because they knew their kids were safe there, not knowing what was really happening there. And that was my first satanic coven. They got me involved in, I did my first assisted abortion there. I got more involved in magic there. That was just like a really bad place to be. And then when I graduated high school, I found the second coven, and that's where I became, the title was a high wizard. And I became a high wizard, and I did that for 12 years. And in that, I did 146 assisted abortions total, from the time I did my first one when I was 14 until I got out when I was 33. And, it was 140. I helped split 120 churches.
Wow.
I only went to 2 black masses in the course of my evil because my church attacked. They had multiple attacks. One was the Catholic Church, and that wasn't who I had grown up Baptist. So I had knowledge of the Baptist Church and how to split them.
Right.
So that's what I worked on, was the Baptist Church. Then we also had a group that actually wrote material for atheists, socialists, communists, that kind of stuff, New Age.
You know what's interesting, Zach, too, not to stop your story, but we're seeing in our country right now a lot of desecration of churches as well. And a lot of statues and things along those lines. That also happened before this horrible genocide in Rwanda, Africa. We saw a lot of statues desecrated in churches as well. And I just wonder sometimes, what is motivating that, or when we see kind of a rise in that in our country, what's behind that?
That's clearly the devil, and not just people thinking that, an evil person here or there. Oh, the devil sometimes has to take a little bit to work up his nerve. If the devil had the nerve all the time, he would be out there doing it all the time. It's like he has to find the right group of people, and there are the right group of people out there that are willing to go out and desecrate a statue. It's like, you have to match up the right evil person with the right evil demon. And then you have, the desecrations and the black masses and, all the things that are bad. I escaped my coven when I was 33. I managed to hide out pretty much for a few years. About 9 years later, I was working in a mall, and this woman came up, basically gave me a miraculous medal, but I didn't know what that was.
Oh, wow.
And that, in my experience, it took me to this darkened void. I'm alone with this woman. She's telling me all this stuff about my life. I'm scared half to death. Right. Eventually I see the Blessed Mother, realize that somebody that she's saying is the Blessed Mother, I realize is the Mother of God. Mary shows up, takes me by the hand, turns me around, and Divine Mercy Jesus is standing behind me. And I accepted Jesus, and also accepted the Blessed Mother, obviously.
Yeah, of course.
She told me my job was to help her end abortion, and now that was 8 years ago. And, All Saints Catholic Ministry is going strong.
That's fantastic. And we can get more into your story as well, but let me take a few calls. I only have a few moments left here. It sounds very similar to, there's another story that I'm very familiar with, the story of Longo, which you're probably familiar with, the great champion of the Rosary, who the miraculous medal also brought about his conversion. So, and this powerful stuff. Let's go to the phones. We'll go to Donna next. She's listening in Rhode Island. Donna, good afternoon. You're on the air with Zach King.
Hi, Drew. Hi, Zach. Zach, I was just wondering, at any point of your life while you were involved with this, did you know it was godly wrong, morally wrong? If I lie, I feel terrible. or you just did it and just justified it that it was good for you? Help me understand.
But you were Catholic, or
yes.
on some level,
yes.
you were, whatever you were, and you have a good formed conscience.
Yeah.
I started out as a Baptist, and I grew up Baptist. But by the time I was 10 years old, I found out that, or 11 years old, 10 years old, I found out magic was real. And I found out that it really worked. These spells really worked. And when you're a powerless, nerdy kid, and you find out that something works that you've been told doesn't work, you want to hold that into yourself and keep it secret. After that, I found out that I got involved in child pornography when I was 12 years old.
Wow.
I didn't realize that I was being re-victimized every weekend. Wow. I thought, this is the most awesome thing in the world. I'm 12 years old and I'm getting to have sex every weekend. So by the time you realize that, this is probably bad and I shouldn't be doing it, I mentioned, in one of my talks, I was able to drink and take drugs and smoke cigarettes. And at 12 years old, where could I do these things? I'm 12 years old. How am I going to buy cigarettes? I can't buy cigarettes. I can't buy booze. I can't buy drugs. I can't have sex. I would lose all these privileges if I quit my covenant. So, you're enjoying the sinning. I mean, if sinning, it wasn't fun. If you didn't like to do it, you wouldn't do it.
Right. No, I got you. All right, let me move along because we only have a few moments here. We've got a full show today. Craig's listening in Milwaukee. Craig, good afternoon.
Hi there. Listen, fellas, I'm not a Catholic, but I'm trying to figure if believing in transubstantiation, as you do, do you think it's possible from a Catholic perspective that Christ, realizing that this has been stolen and it's not going to be used for the cause that he was consecrated for, might simply withdraw himself from that element?
All right, Craig, thanks. We only have a couple minutes. I'll let you go first. Craig, Zach, I would argue probably not. That's why this is such an egregious offense against God. God can do anything, but no, once that host is consecrated, then he's truly present. And that's,
I would say,
go ahead.
I would say not, because it would say that the priest doesn't have the power to consecrate the host fully, because once the priest consecrates it, it's consecrated. As well, it would seem like Jesus would want to give the grace to every person in that room. That gives everybody there a chance to convert. You never know that even the last person to touch the host, the person that throws it in the fire, might regret what they've done after they do it.
Yeah, it's interesting too that Satanists, it just speaks to the power of the true presence. Because look, you can go to any other church, you can go to Methodist, Episcopalian, Lutheran, whatever, and take some sort of host, but they go only after Catholic churches, don't they? Because they recognize, on a spiritual level, they recognize that Jesus within the Catholic Church is truly present in that host.
Exactly,
and that to me is just it's powerful. We'll go to Kurt in Chicago. Kurt, good afternoon.
Yeah, hi guys, great show. Real quick question: when the Satanists thought that abortion was being attacked, they held a ritual out in front where all the women knelt down and they poured milk on them.
Yeah.
What is that? What is that ritual? What does that mean?
It's not an actual satanic ritual per se. They were talking. It was basically representing people being waterboarded and tortured. And I believe you can look this up online. It was like a mockery of if by not supplying women with abortion, which is their God-given right, so to speak, according to them, then you're in essence torturing the women, and silencing them and making them give birth to your children.
Yeah, I remember very vaguely that milk ceremony, and I didn't know what was behind that. I'll tell you what, I wish I had an hour to talk with you, Zach. Stay on the line. I'm going to talk to you at the break. Folks, when we come back, we're going to actually talk about Islam. Is it a religion of peace or of violence? We're going to actually have a very hot debate on that as well with somebody who's very prominent in the movement. Zach King, though, you can check him out at allsaintsministry.org.